that next slide, please. Am I the one appearing on that bottom?
Yeah, you are the one.
Where is the camera?
The camera is here only. This is the camera.
This camera.
You can,
Okay.
yeah. You can.
Oh.
Now you are handsome.
Okay. Yeah. So today is the World Food Day. That was what I wanted to tell. As Madam was telling, it's not only the World Food Day. Today is the World Dictionary Day. Today is the day when Noah Webster, who created the Webster's Dictionary, was born. It's his birthday. Today is the World Anesthesia Day. On this day, Harvard University, one dentist attempted trying anesthesia on a tumor removal without pain, and it initiated all surgery without pain today. So a lot of important to this day. And of course, food and biodiversity is something you cannot live without biodiversity with regard to food. That would be like a 3-4 hour lecture on food and biodiversity. Next slide, please. Yeah, so just to show you how biodiversity affects food, we have beautiful systems. Although we use mainly about 3-4 crops to feed the entire humankind, we use maize, rice, wheat. Most of our food goes in that. Then probably cassava, tapioca. That's all. But in each, on the left-hand side, we did a while we were in biodiversity board. There was a small village where they were cataloging the diversity in mango. So all those mango leaves, what is written is variety. That particular village have more than 100 kinds of mango varieties there. Some used for pickling, some used for juice making. Some mangoes as large as say a small football, very tiny mangoes. You have a lot of varieties. On the right hand side is how people very ingeniously cultivate things. What is you on the right hand side? Behind that, what you see is actually the mangroves. The cultivation is actually happening in water where there is a lot of salinity. Okay. Imagine mangrove area being forestry people. Rice is actually not very saline tolerant. What they have done is you see the small mounds. On those mounds they sow the seeds. Okay, during the rainy period they grow on the mounds because the salt is water soluble. The salt will leach out over the top of the mound, and on the mound, without any disturbing presence of salt, rice will grow. And on the water there, during the first crop season they harvest fish, and at the end of, because during the rain all the salt would have gone to the water, the top of the mound is free of salt, the rice germinates there. They will, during the first crop season, they will catch the fish. At the end of the season, what they will do is they just dismantle the mound and the rice will grow. And it's a beautiful system. It's called Pokkali. In Ernakulam area, you go to, it's called Pokkali rice. And towards North Kerala, it's called Kaipad. So it's an organic rice, very interesting, fully organic. See how diverse, like we call about alpha diversity, beta diversity, gamma diversity. In agriculture systems, we have this. So all our food, whatever we eat, is sustained by biodiversity. Next slide, please. Another is how does biodiversity affect our culture? That's a very interesting, a very compelling topic to talk about. The one you see there is a Samabajau fisherman. These are people who are found along the Indonesian, Malaysian, Papua New Guinea, those areas. Those are the people who can go dive underwater for the longest period. And they have a belief which says every Samabajau person is born as a twin. And the second part, along with every child that is born, the placenta is identified as a twin. And placenta is returned to the sea, assuming that it's an octopus. And every Samabajau person believes that his twin is living in the ocean. So imagine the twin is living in the ocean, and no person who has that belief will ever disturb the ocean. What you can see is he's swimming with the octopus. Okay, they believe that they have their twin relations living in the such strong cultural bonds. Next slide, please. We are also not devoid of cultural bonds. You have your own cultural feelings like say Sarpakav, sacred grooves, all those things. That's a very interesting area. That's another 3 hours of talk on biodiversity and culture. How biodiversity shapes culture and how culture shapes biodiversity. But we will be talking about a different topic, which is health. And whenever we talk about how does biodiversity affect health, we all normally talk about Ayurveda, systems of indigenous medicines. So I thought I'll not talk about that at all. I'll not talk about it. I'll just talk about modern medicine. How does modern medicine? And modern medicine, we'll think about Syncona and all. No, I'm not going to talk about Syncona also. I'll talk about very specific 2-3 cases to tell you how biodiversity affects human health. And it's a very difficult thing to convey. Next slide, please. See, we have what we call as a triple planetary crisis. Triple planetary crisis are climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. Okay. Apart from biodiversity, climate change and pollution are actually quite fashionable to talk about. Remember first meeting on biodiversity, pollution started with the 1972 Stockholm Conference. 72 Stockholm Conference was the first arena where we started talking about environment. And contrary to what we believe today, that Stockholm Conference was a big conference, it was actually not a very big conference. It was a very small conference. It was attended, apart from the Prime Minister of host country, only one Prime Minister attended that conference. That was Indira Gandhi. And Indira Gandhi she made a great speech, and that was a speech where, for the first time, people were talking about environmental cost of development and developmental cost of environment. Okay, and even now it's available. You should listen to that speech. It's a beautiful speech. And from before that itself, Indira Gandhi was known as a campaigner for environment. Like 1971, the Ramsar Convention happened. Ramsar Convention in Iran. And Salim Ali represented India in Ramsar Convention. 1972, we were talking about Wildlife Conservation Act. So the act came in 1972. We had immediately following this, we had a series of acts coming up. Like we had the Air Pollution Act, Environmental Protection Act, lot of enactments came after this. And that conference per se was a very small conference. And if you look into the development, talking about environment, one of the most important milestones in environment concern was Rachel Carson's publication of Silent Spring in 1962. 62, the Rachel Carson's came. 68, you had another great book, The Population Boom. Okay. Then this was one of the important events, and we still talk about pollution. Pollution is a big concern. Even when the war is happening in Israel and Palestine, we talk about Israel coast being dumped with oil pollutants. It's a big issue. Anything that pollutes, everywhere pollution is a huge issue. Right to the panchayat level, we are worried about pollution. So it's a big thing. Climate change, again, starting with 1997, Kyoto Protocol, then you have everything, Paris Agreement, down to the Bonn Convention that happened in June. Now it's good. It's a series, and UNFCCC, big, lot of Nobel Prizes, lot of attention, world talking about it, world feeling it. So it's something like quite glamorous. And you talk about environment and climate change. But the third crisis is biodiversity loss. But that's something that we don't really bother about. Okay. Despite the fact that even at the local level, panchayat level, we have what is called as BMCs, biodiversity management committees. I don't know which other department has that kind of a presence in a panchayat level. We have excellent laws, Biodiversity Conservation Act is there. Despite that, it's still not getting the attention that it deserves, probably because it's not as glamorous as people think. So my attempt would be to tell you, how does biodiversity affect each facet of your life? Okay, and one of the most important, of course, is health. And next slide, please. Yeah, I hope you recognize this gentleman. Who is this? Alexander Fleming. Alexander Fleming, what did he do? He discovered penicillin. Penicillin in which year? 1928. He got a Nobel Prize for Physiology in 1954 and he died in 1955 at the age of 73. And Alexander Fleming, during the First World War, the scene was that more people were dying out of infection than actually in compact, because people were getting wounded and that wound got infected, and because of that infection, people were dying. So this was something that was worrying Alexander Fleming. And at that point of time, the only way of treating was using antiseptics. And antiseptics, Alexander Fleming wrote an article in 1970 in Lancet saying that antiseptics are killing more people than it should be saving. Because by using antiseptic, what's happening is the anaerobic bacteria, antiseptics do not test the anaerobic bacteria because they are dying, laying deep. They clean the aerobic bacteria, but whatever mechanism that body is taking, antiseptics are actually disrupting that. So people are more dying because of antiseptics. So they were worried, especially on these things, and he was doing a lot of experiments. And before discovery of penicillin, he discovered lysosomes. Lysosomes come from mucus layer. His mucus layer, he put it in a petri dish, and he found that mucus layer is able to prevent the growth of bacteria. And from that, he found lysozymes, and lysozymes as excellent antibiotics that was being promoted. And later on, very accidentally, he came out with the discovery of penicillin. You must be knowing the story. He found that some of his petri dishes had some mold growth, and around the mold growth, no bacteria was growing, and that led to the discovery of penicillin. And finally, it changed the entire medical. What we enjoy today as antibiotics actually came from this accidental discovery of penicillin. And that changed the entire medicine. So without antibiotics, you will not be able to think about medicine today, because it's so vital for our health. And where does antibiotics come from? All the antibiotics that we know today come from biodiversity, starting from penicillin. Okay, we have no other means of fighting this. Next slide, please. But we are at a crisis. We are running into what we call as a cat and mouse game. We have been discovering a lot of antibiotics, and all the bacteria are finding newer and newer ways of circumventing these antibiotics. And we find that more, and see, if you go to a hospital today, the chances of you dying out of a hospital-borne, resistant bacteria is something that's real, because there are a lot of bacteria that could actually you could get from the hospital which are resistant, and everybody is worried about it. And specifically, especially for developing countries, the indiscriminate use of antibiotics is a major concern. we pop antibiotics especially after the COVID. Whenever we get a sore throat, we immediately walk into a medical shop, ask for an erythromycin or whatever antibiotic you want. The normal dose would be 5 days, 3 days, you are cured, then you stop the antibiotic, done. Okay, now what does that do to the bacteria? Bacteria become, because when you are at a sublethal level, some of the bacteria could actually survive, and this bacteria could actually multiply, they become resistant, and next time when you try to use the same antibiotic, it doesn't work. Okay, no, that's a huge issue. Especially some of the diseases are making a huge comeback. Specifically, one disease that is making a huge comeback is TB. TB is making a huge comeback. Next slide, please. Okay, so see, if you look at the how antibiotics work. Now, antibiotics work in various fashions. One of the penicillin, for example, directly kills the bacteria. Okay, some of the antibiotics doesn't work like that. Some of the antibiotics, so what they do is they don't actually kill the bacteria. They just prevent the multiplication of bacteria. And whatever bacteria survive, it will be killed by lysosomes. Okay, there are large number of antibiotics which work that way. So if you look into that graph, you will find that there are some antibiotics that prevent the cell wall synthesis, some prevent the cell membrane synthesis, some actually prevent protein synthesis, some prevent the RNA multiplication, some prevent the DNA multiplication. So there are different ways in which antibiotics act. But you find that most of these ways, antibiotic resistance are also coming up. People are now, bacteria have found newer and newer ways of coming out of the situation. Next slide, please. Yeah, you can find different kinds of antibiotics. So right from say 1928, you have the penicillin. Then you have the sulfonamides. All these antibiotics, you find that most of these antibiotics, no, we are also finding that they are getting resistant because of, and we are running out of ideas now. We don't know what to do now. And that's like you are getting into a war without any equipment. You are barehanded and you are going to fight. You are being driven back to the First World War era when you were helpless without any antibiotic. And soon we might reach that stage. If you go to hospital, doctors are really worried about, for a person who has a very low immunity, doctors are really worried about them catching diseases from the hospital, because once you get that diseases, it's very difficult to treat them. Okay, and this is something that's a huge concern in medical field. And where do the next antibiotic come? We have no other option other than to look at the world to find out how to fight them. When we were helpless against sepsis in wounds during the First World War, nature threw us the way and showed penicillin can help you. Then we found out various ways. Today we are slowly going back to that stage where we are running clueless. We have no idea about where is our next antibiotic going to come. Most of the known antibiotics, we have found that there are resistance developed. Next slide, please. Yeah, for example, I was talking about XDR and MDR. MDR is multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. XDR is a rare kind of MDR which is resistant to at least 4 frontline antibiotics that is used for TB treatment. And look at how many people are actually affected by XDR and MDR. We're finding tuberculosis is making a big comeback. It's prevalent in India. People get tuberculosis, and we are forced to use polymyxin drugs to control tuberculosis today. And that also is failing. Okay. Once you get tuberculosis, you can have tuberculosis in not only in your lungs, you could have it in your bone. There are multiple areas where tuberculosis can actually get affected. And that's now most of the TB getting what we discovered today are result of such multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, extended drug resistant tuberculosis, and this is now a huge concern for us. Next slide. See, for example, what do you do about this? You will find that colistin is an antibiotic. Colistin is one of the last line of defense we have. Among the antibiotics, colistin is one of the last line of defense. And colistin was very indiscriminately being used in, it's not an antibiotic that's normally prescribed. Okay. Means medical doctors are very, very hesitant to prefer colistin, because if colistin resistance comes up, it's very difficult. We have nothing else other than colistin. That's a dead end. Now, veterinary people are using colistin. Okay. Now we have banned it. No, in veterinary medicine, colistin is banned. You cannot use colistin because many of the disease resistance have come from veterinary medicine. But unfortunately, we have now encountered colistin resistance. First it was reported in China, now it has come to India. Okay, India, there are many Klebsiella we have found colistin resistance now. It's now spreading. Understand that colistin is the last line. That's the ultimate we have. Okay. Now that resistance is also reported. Next slide, please. Okay. Another very interesting is what we call as New Delhi metallo-beta lactamase. Lactamase is an enzyme. Beta lactamine is a class of antibiotics that are very potent. You will have carbapenemase. There are a lot of imipenem, a lot of antibiotics which are of that class. They were like colistin. They were also a last line of defense. We find that lactamase can actually destroy the antibiotic. Okay, they can hydrolyze this antibiotic, make it ineffective. And NDM1 was first discovered on a Swedish national from New Delhi. That's why it's called New Delhi metallo-beta lactamase NDM1. This was initially discovered again a person who had pneumonia from Klebsiella pneumoniae. We found that this none of these the drugs like meropenem, imipenem were very potent drugs for treating. They were not working, and they finally found out that it's actually a particular gene that was producing the lactamase, and that's actually making the drug ineffective. And more importantly, we found that there's a horizontal gene transfer happening. Horizontal gene transfer, you can have vertical gene transfer through breeding. Horizontal gene transfer is it's going from one to Escherichia coli to, we at least, now the latest I was just looking, we have 60 species of bacteria spread over 11 families that now has NDM1 resistance. Okay, which means, see, things, you have things like transformation, transduction, conjugation, different means of horizontal gene transfer. Bacteria are good at it. They are horizontally transferring the gene, and NDM1 resistance, there are at least 25 countries where now NDM1 is reported. Okay. And India, we have it. Okay. So we are home to most of the problems like colistin resistance, NDM1 resistance. So next time you could actually be dying of a very small thing like a pneumonia or something colistin which can't be treated. We are really facing such a huge issue. And what are we doing about it? What we are doing is we are again searching on the nature to find out new and new solutions. For example, chestnut leaf, we found that there are components that can actually kill the bacteria. Okay, that's a new line. So we are very actively looking at all unexplored places to find out newer and newer ways of tackling this issue. We are looking at coral reefs. We are looking at various places, very frenetically searching to find if there are new ways of tackling bacteria, because all the old ways are running out. Okay, the world is looking at all developing countries like ours to at least regulate the use of antibiotics. Okay, you go to any other developing country, you wouldn't find such indiscriminate. You cannot walk into a medical store and ask for an antibiotic that nobody will give you to. Okay, but you could at the same time walk into any medical shop today. You want, I've seen people just coming and asking for azithromycin, because it's quite easy. Azithromycin is you take one pop in one tablet. Next day, 3 tablets, your sore throat will go. Okay, but azithromycin is a very dangerous drug. Azithromycin is a drug which is not clearly antibiotic. It doesn't kill the bacteria. It actually prevents the bacteria from multiplying. Okay. Along with that, it's a dangerous drug for people, especially people who have heart attack, who have a heart disease. Azithromycin can be really fatal. Okay, we really don't know about it. Someone tells you that azithromycin is a good antibiotic when you have a sore throat. I think most of us walk into shop and say, I need 3 azithromycin, 3 other, if you are taking other ciprofloxacin and all, you need 3, it's TED, morning, afternoon, evening, for 5 days. While azithromycin, probably people will tell you, they just take pop in one tablet for 3 days and it's gone. And you find it also, you take it, it's gone. But these things are happening. And we find that the problem of all these problems like horizontal gene transfer, evolving of bacteria, everything in the book is seen now. And we are at a dead end now. Very soon, we will reach a point where antibiotics are not a frontline tool that we have. And we will probably reach a stage where when we were in the First World War, people will die of things like common cold, okay, of pneumonia. And we have no other place other than biodiversity to look at that. Okay. Okay, next slide, please. Human microbiome, I'll not talk, I'll save some time because I don't want to talk much about it. I'll take a few cases. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is another interesting frog. This is a southern gastric brooding frog. Okay, Rheobatrachus species. We had 3 species. Okay, they were discovered from the Australian continent. And quite interestingly, you can see a small tadpole in the mouth of the mother frog. What this frog does is quite interesting. The fertilized egg is swallowed by the frog. Okay, so it goes into the stomach. And these stomachs, of vertebrate stomach is a cesspool of all kinds of things that is prepared to digest food. You have lipase. I mean, everything in the stomach is actually, it's acidic. There's acid there. There are all enzymes that are ready to digest it. So imagine if naturally if something goes into your stomach will digest it. Okay, but strangely these frogs, these tadpoles do not get digested. Moreover, whatever goes to the stomach actually puts it into industry. Okay, I mean, that's how the stomach. It's a one-way traffic. Nothing comes out unless you are going to puke out, like you are going to vomit. This frog very coolly survives in the stomach in this cesspool of things, and at the time it is ready, fully developed, it is actually vomited out, and the child then, the tadpole then comes out and grows normally. Quite interesting. 3 species of frogs were discovered. People, scientists found, okay, this is very interesting because we were worried about a lot of this. This could be a treatment for many things if you study properly. Ulcer, for example, because these tadpoles are actually secreting something that protects itself from these digestive fluids. So we were studying about it. But unfortunately, what happened is 1980, the last gastric brooding frog was found. Now it's extinct. We have all the 3 species are now extinct. We have not found those species. Our research also has stopped because there are no more gastric brooding frogs in there. So imagine what all ingenious things are there in the nature which could be used for health. Take the next slide, please. Yeah, this is another word, snowdrop. Now, this is traditionally used as a painkiller for headaches. Okay, and we had an alkaloid called galantamine discovered from this. Now, what we find is it actually slows down dementia. Dementia is you forget, your memory loss happens. We found that it actually slows down dementia. A lot of actually research is going on utilizing this drug for various diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, okay, wherein the memory system and your motor control is affected. Take another example. Next slide, please. This is another one, bears and human physiology. Bears in temperate areas, they do what is called as hibernation. They don't actually go into very deep hibernations. Bears can be very easily awakened. If you just make a sound, they will rise up. They really don't go into very deep hibernation like many other animals. But what is interesting in this is there are a couple of things that these bears do. One is their metabolism is almost normal. Okay, they create a lot of urine, and when urine accumulates in your body, that's an end stage of renal disease in humans. You'll go for dialysis, and finally you die of that. But these animals, they'll do a very tricky thing. They circulate back their urine to the bloodstream. And there, the urea is again broken down to amino acids. Then it is used by the animal. Okay. Very interesting, because you could have a solution for all your kidney problems. If you know how they do this, how do they bring it back to the bloodstream, and in the bloodstream, how do they break it down to you in amino acids and do this? Research is going on this. In especially in ladies, the issue of osteoporosis with age. Calcium is lost. And calcium is lost, your bone becomes everyone, but it's more with ladies. It doesn't happen for all the calcium that is excreted by urine is taken back by base and recirculated. Quite interesting, and we are actually working on this. So many problems that we today think do not have a solution. We have solutions in nature, which we are actively trying to study. Take another example. Next slide, please. This is a case of what we call as cone snails. There are large number of cone snails. There are at least more than 4,000 species of cone snails, and the collectors of these cones are called melon colonists, and they collect, and it's becoming rare. What is so interesting about this is they have, for catching their prey, they have a harpoon-like structure. Okay, with this harpoon-like structure, they actually go and pick a prey, and along that they deliver what is called as conopeptides. It's for each species they have a unique set of conopeptides. There are more than 1 lakh conopeptide found in these cones. And we have recently found that they all have one purpose: to paralyze the prey. Okay, but they have different modes of doing it. They do it in various methods, and some of the lot of research is going on this. And one of the conopeptide that we have found is they have affinity for a very specific acetylcholine receptor. An acetylcholine receptor plays a crucial role in many diseases like again Parkinson, Alzheimer's, stroke, even alcoholism. Acetylcholine receptor management is a very important thing. Again, research is going on how to use this conopeptide receptor. See how the variety of mechanisms available lies our solutions. You would have heard about metagenomics. Metagenomics, biotechnologists will tell you what metagenomics is. A lot of studies are happening on metagenomics. In forestry, we use many tools of biotechnology like environment DNA. Metagenomics is you study the 16S DNA. I will not go deep into it. That's very specific to prokaryotes. We find that when you take out, say, when you take the mud from soil and do a metagenomic study, you get a lot of 16S DNA. And when we look at the prokaryotes, we see that there are a large number of DNA which goes unaccorded. We don't know. It's like saying you put in your names here and I'm going to read out the names. I find somewhere about 200 names in this hall whom I cannot identify. Okay, I'm not able to see this 200, but then 200 is here. They are putting their names, but I cannot see them. I cannot feel them. I just know that their names are here. So metagenomics, many diseases. Ulcer, till recently, ulcer was the only way of treating ulcer was doing a surgery. Today, if you go with ulcer, it is treated with an antibiotic. Ulcer is the cause of ulcer is antibiotic and bacteria, and you treat with antibiotics. A large number of changes are happening. The so-called lifestyle diseases that we have, like high BP or sugar, diabetic. Probably with study of metagenomics, you'll find that they could have some cure which could be like an antibiotic or some supplement or something. And many diseases like scurvy at one point of time was killing a lot of people. Suddenly we found it's only a vitamin deficiency. You could actually give some supplement, and no scurvy will happen. We are on that day. We are going towards that, and understand that biodiversity plays a crucial role in all these discoveries. So, eat antibiotic, eat gonopeptide, be it the physiological mechanisms, biodiversity is the solution to modern medicine. I'll take another small case to see how biodiversity affects. This will be more directly related to biodiversity. Next slide, please. This is a disease called Lyme disease. Okay. Today, every disease has what is called as a disease ecology. That's a new term. Okay. We talk about disease ecology. Lyme disease is a disease that was initially found on children in European countries who were living close to forest areas. Forest areas suddenly students developed diseases quite similar to rheumatism. Children do not get rheumatism. Generally, they don't get rheumatism. No? What is it called? Vadam. What is in Tamil? Vadam. So they don't get Vadam. Okay. So people, and that too, when children, small children who go to the forest and play, who are living quite close to these areas, then they found that, okay, Lyme disease is actually people who are bitten by ticks. You would have got bitten by ticks. Yeah. Those kids get Lyme disease. Okay, next slide, please. This is the thing. Okay, you have Ixodes ricinus, and you have this bullet kind of mark coming onto the leg of the child. Then it slowly developed into a rheumatism-like disease, and the child gets really affected. Now, Lyme disease is there in America, Europe, entire Europe. It's a major issue. So people are studying this. Okay, next slide, please. And they found the life cycle of the tick. Okay, they studied the life cycle of the tick, and what they found is, on the left picture, the tick actually lays the egg during the spring period. Okay, and during the summer, the egg hatches and the larvae come out. We know it's a larvae because larvae has only 3 legs. Okay, and none of the larvae will actually harbor the bacteria. Lyme disease causing bacteria will not be there in, because basically every larva is disease free. Okay, immediately what happens is, just before the fall, it latches onto one of the prey species, one of the host, not a prey, host. And if the host is having the bacteria, the larvae will catch the bacteria. Okay, and then the larvae becomes infected. Okay, now come the next spring. It will molt, it will go into a nymph. After the first bloody meal, it molts and comes into a nymph, wherein you will find that it has got 4 legs. Then it bites onto the second host. Okay, the second host, if it is infected, even if the nymph is uninfected, again it can get infected. Okay, and once the second meal is over, the tick is now ready to transmit the disease. This is the life cycle of the Lyme disease. Okay, now quite interestingly, look at the right side. It can take, the first bite can be taken from a variety of animals. Okay, variety. It can take it from birds, it can take it from rats, it can take it from deers. Any animal it can actually bite. Okay, but the trick is, some of these animals are very poor transmitters of the bacteria. There are some of the animals, even if they have the bacteria, they don't transmit it to the tick. Okay, they could be having the hosting the bacteria, but something like say 10% or 20% only is transmitted. some things like say mouse are excellent transmitters. If a tick bites it, sure that the tick is going to get infected. So some of them are actually reservoir hosts. You can find a reservoir host in the form of right side, like a fox. Okay. Some of them are dilution hosts. They dilute. Okay. If this, and depending upon the proportion of animals in the forest. Okay. If you have lot of dilution hosts in the forest, the chances of the tick carrying the disease is very low. If there are most of the dilution hosts have disappeared from the forest, you will find that the prevalence of Lyme disease goes up. Okay. And people have actually studied this. They have found that biodiversity, if you measure the biodiversity, you can very clearly talk about what is the chance that the tick could be carrying the bacteria. Okay. Now from this study, so again, it is there for the second bite also. Now from this, we started talking about disease ecology. Today, every zoonotic disease, most of the emerging diseases are today zoonotic, like COVID. We had recently Nipah, okay, in Kerala. They are all zoonotic. You would have heard about SARS, MERS. They are all the major diseases that we find today are all zoonotic in origin. We are actually waiting for bigger and bigger zoonotic diseases to come. We don't know from where. It could come from the forests of Brazil. It could come from the forests of China. It could actually come from the small mammal population, bat population in Calicut district of Kerala. We have three instances right now of Nipah coming out. Nipah is a disease that has 97% mortality rate. Okay. It could actually kill you. And we are having more and more chances of actually interacting with animals. Okay. Look at this campus now. It's right on the elephant corridor. We have built Salim Ali Institute of Ornithology right on the corridors of elephant. We already had a duck there. Okay. Because we built a colony in Munnar right on the elephant corridor, Arikomber is now in Tamil Nadu. You know, there's an elephant called Arikomber. Yeah. Because we built we colonized that area. We were staying there. You know, we are increasing our chances of interaction with animals. And the chances of who knows what all diseases are there. There are large number of diseases, and see, you cannot actually eliminate the entire disease, especially zoonotic disease, because there are co-hosts. Okay? Yes. It's almost impossible. You just can't do it. So disease ecology of every zoonotic disease has now become important. Disease ecology of coronavirus, disease ecology of SARS virus, disease ecology of MERS virus, disease ecology of Ebola. Any zoonotic disease you take, people are now fanatically studying about the disease ecology of that particular zoonotic disease. And we find that this has direct bearing like this. If you have enough dilution hosts in your forest, the chances of this particular disease spilling over to humans are rare. Because even if the tick bites you, it may not carry your bacteria. So that's another, how biodiversity. So you increase your biodiversity. If you increase in these forests, if the biodiversity goes up, we find that it doesn't actually carry the disease. You don't get the zoonotic. You might get bitten by the tick. That's fine. It's okay. But if you have enough dilution hosts, so biodiversity plays a crucial role there in disease ecology. Okay. Next slide, please. Yeah. These are some of the articles I just randomly took. Disease ecology, novel concepts and methods to track and forecast disease emergence, transmission, spread, and endemization. Active research is happening. Next slide, please. Ecological fever, the evolutionary history of coronavirus in human-wildlife relationship. Yeah, it comes in. So we are now, how does this spillover happen? Okay, that's a very interesting area to be studied. Next. These are some direct coronavirus pandemic implications on biodiversity conservation. COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, you just go out and search. The large number of articles talking about disease ecology and diseases like coronavirus. Okay. Next slide, please. So most of the zoonotic diseases, we grow actually most of the mammals living on the surface are actually cows in all our animal livestock products. Okay, and the other animals are very little. You find that there is spillover. Normally there could be spillover like those small bumps, but certain cases there is a magnification that happens like coronavirus. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, next we'll go first. Next, I'll stop with this particular thing. This is, have you heard of something called disease X? This is something the world is actually looking at. Okay. Coronavirus, one of the version was qualified to be called a disease X. Okay. Disease X has a very specific conditions. And one of the coronavirus strain, the WHO classified it as disease X. Disease X is that's something the world is expecting. That's something that could actually create great havoc to humanity. Okay. Every disease that is emerging, we are actually checking whether it is a disease X. Okay. One of the assumptions is that disease X could actually originate from the forests of Brazil. There is something lying there, it can actually wipe out human beings. Okay. Definitely it's going to be a zoonotic disease. Okay. And it's going to be intrinsically related to the biodiversity, especially conservation of biodiversity. So I was trying to, in this brief time, I was trying to tell you about a few things, although a bit fast. I was talking about how biodiversity affects something like antibiotics. Like how does the fight with bacteria? What are we losing in this? Okay, where is our next hope? I was talking about some other things like gastric brooding frog. What all you can learn from that? Something like bears, the physiology, how it can help you in treating kidney failures or osteoporosis. Use of the things like conopeptides from cones that can actually help you in treating Alzheimer's or dementia or strokes or alcoholism, things like that. Then I tried to introduce you to a new concept called disease ecology. What is disease ecology? I just took up the case of Lyme disease. There are a lot of diseases where such things, and how biodiversity has a direct role in deciding whether you get the disease or you don't get the disease. Okay. And zoonotic diseases are the next big thing. You look at the recent epidemics that has happened to human history, humanity, they are all zoonotic. Okay. They are all zoonotic. You would have heard about monkey fever, bird fever, okay, Middle East respiratory syndrome, coronavirus, Nipah. You take everything is related to zoonotic origin. And the next disease X, is going to be also from zoonotic origin. Okay, and you understand that everything is going to be related to biodiversity. So if you really don't play your cards well with regard to biodiversity, you might be the last generation surviving on Earth. Okay, there are many threats that humanity actually faces. One of the threat looming humanity is evolution of a bacteria that can actually take on plastics, because we have huge plastics lying in the ocean, as huge as a continent. No? So nature will not leave anything like that. That's a huge resource for nature. No? Nature will find somebody will find a way to eat it up, and it's most likely a bacteria. And if a bacteria can eat plastic, that day humanity will be over, because we depend such a great deal on plastic. That bacteria getting in your body will eat your heart valve. Okay, it will take away all your prosthetics. Okay, I mean, imagine that could happen. There could be somewhere some bacteria trying very fanatically to find out how to use this fellow, because such a huge resource. You know, it will find a way. The bacteria will find a way to survive in hot springs. They will survive in very cold area. You name any system available in this globe, they find a way to survive there. They will very soon start a way to eat your plastic also. And once they start eating plastics, you're doomed. Okay, so there are many things, many threats that I'm not a doomsday sayer, but there are a large number of threats, and biodiversity conservation is one such threat. But the most important threat regard to health. Okay, thank you for your time. You can ask some questions if you want. I think I took somewhere about 1 hour.
You can ask some questions. Very interesting, right? You told of zoonotic disease, no? Anything of disease of plant origin? Anything
Actually, agriculture is creating a lot of other issues. Like we don't have many antifungal medications like antibiotic. No? You have glyceofulvin, some but we use a lot of antifungals in agriculture. Okay, agriculture, we use plenty of antifungal formulations, and resistance have already developed. You would have heard about black fungus disease. Have you read about black fungus? And especially in coronavirus issues, people worried about black fungus, resistant, coming in. Okay, now I think government is restricting the use of many antifungal formulations. I don't want to tell about antifungal here. Probably it's online also. So, but antifungal agriculture more than veterinary. Like veterinary has a problem with antibiotics. Antifungal agriculture is creating the problem. We use a lot of antifungal chemicals in agriculture, and fungus is actually gaining resistance. And black fungus was a big concern. I don't know how many of you have read in papers and all about black fungus. Resistant varieties. Yeah.
Students can interact. It's a good opportunity for you.
Either you understood everything or you have not understood a word.
No questions. He has thrown many ideas.
They all want to get back now.
Nobody. It's quite surprising.
Anything new you got? Because, because I didn't want to talk about how your Ayurvedic drugs actually Synchrona actually when people are so many products of biodiversity that actually saved the humanity, a large number of products. But I wanted to tell you about more specific about things like antibiotic, new unknown diseases that could be species becoming extinct.
Any from micro level to macro level.
Yeah,
There are some species
large number of studies are actually happening on impact of climate change on biodiversity, especially many studies were using Maxent is available. Maxent is a simulating software. Lot of available. But climate change has a lot of issues. One is climate change is actually creating problems for disease. Say for example, Plasmodium. Now it's multiplying faster with climate change. So the disease prevalence of with climate change, we find that some of the diseases are actually increasing because of climate change. Especially these Anopheles mosquito, no? Their multiplication, malaria is going up because of climate change. Because they are able to breed faster.
Is there any example that because of temperature increase or climate change, disease prevalence is getting reduced?
But nobody's bothered about that. We are more worried about it is increasing. But reducing of disease, we are not really hurt. But we are well documented cases of malaria is there. It's actually going on. More cycles of thing happens with increased temperature. Okay. Now we have no flood. One side you have flood, and you have all waterborne disease. Cholera, everything now spreading. And Kerala had floods in 2018, and your septic tank goes up, it mixes with the water in your well.
Waterborne diseases.
All waterborne diseases. Floods create lot of diseases. Climate change is actually leading to many diseases, especially this things like mosquitoes and all. No, their breeding becomes faster. So
any questions from students?
yeah.
I want to ask about the concern
Actually, there are a large number of see monkey fever. Similar to that, there are a large number of diseases lying in these. As reservoirs in animal world. Okay. Generally, it doesn't come to humans. Okay. Generally, you don't catch the diseases, but there could be some mutation happening wherein it makes the transmission possible. Especially in like virus, which mutates quite fast. So whenever you have a chance of an interaction. Okay. This interaction could be that, say, for example, you have a forest area or you have a tree, the thing where there are a lot of bats nesting. You go and disturb that. You cut the trees. Now the bats disturb. Okay. Or they move to newer areas. They come in contact with some small population that has this pathogen in them. Then they spread it across. So whenever you create the disturbance, so say in monkey fever also, generally you don't have a chance to mix with them, but then they for some reason come out. Okay, the reason it could be climate change. We find that there are research studies in Kerala which says, see, peacock is spreading throughout Kerala. We have peacocks. Okay. During the last 10-15 years, peacocks have spread. Peacock has become a big menace. In Tamil Nadu, it was already a menace.
Yeah.
In Kerala, now it has become a menace because of climate change. Drier, when you have drier things, these like reptiles, they grow up, they come up. We doubt whether elephant issues, man-animal conflicts is a result of climate change. It could be the result of many things. It could be the result of climate change. It could be the result of biodiversity loss, like invasive species coming up. When we were discussing about Convention on Biodiversity, we never mentioned invasive alien species as a problem that is affecting biodiversity. Now that is one of the biggest problems. If you talk about biodiversity, we talk about climate change, invasive species. These are all the biggest problems. 92, we didn't talk about these things. New issues are emerging. Now that creates chances for more and more interaction with animals. You could get fever. There are large number of diseases which are there as among wild animals. Many diseases are transmittable. So the thing is, you don't create a opportunity for the diseases for an interaction. That's the only option. There's no way you can kill all the monkeys and you can escape from monkey fever. No, it doesn't happen. Okay, it doesn't happen like that. You are free to kill all the mosquitoes. Go ahead, kill. Nobody will arrest you. Monkey you touch, Wildlife Protection Act will come. But you kill all the mosquitoes. How many mosquitoes will you kill? That's not an option you have. In fact, see, you would have heard about certain things that are water soluble. Okay, certain things are fat soluble. For example, if you ever go for a dance program, they put makeup on you. If you wash your face, it will not go. What you will do? You will put oil, correct? If you go for a dance, what you do? You know, for removing the makeup, you put oil and rub. Then the oil will actually dissolve it. These are called fat soluble. Diclofenac is something. Your many of the things that you intake, if it is fat soluble, you will excrete it through your urine. But fat soluble things, what happens is you cannot excrete it through the urine. So what the body does, it will absorb in, it will dissolve it in fat, and it will store in your body. Okay. So if you take diclofenac, your body has no way of excreting it. Some may be excreted, but it's still there in your body. So what happens is the diclofenac is stored in your body. Now you are eaten, suppose that particular thing is eaten by something else. Okay. Now the diclofenac of the prey animal will get into the feeding animal. Okay. Now if that is eaten by somebody else, the entire thing will go to the thing. So what is the apex predator? No, we are one of the apex predators, for example. Okay. So we collect all these diclofenac from the smallest animal to this. This is called biological magnification. Okay, that's called biological magnification. So we find that this problem came with Rachel Carson's book Silent Spring. Okay, they found that bald eagles, when they sit for brooding, the eggs break because the egg shell, no, it doesn't have enough strength to support the body weight of the mother bird. It was actually breaking. Then we started talking about the problems of these. So diclofenac became one of the issues. Diclofenac is used even now by us. You know, if you have a problem with your, you go to a hospital shop, they give you move, or move is diclofenac basically. Or when you have a stomach pain, they give you Vovaran. It is diclofenac. Suppose you have a big pain, you go there, they give you an injection. It is diclofenac. Okay, it's used. The problem is diclofenac has this issue that it can get accumulated in your body, and once it gets accumulated, anything that is actually fat soluble, no, you should be very dangerous. I mean, they have like if you ever take vitamin D, it's a fat soluble vitamin. Okay, so you are asked to actually be very careful when you take vitamin D. If you take vitamin, doctors tell you take one tablet a month. Okay, 6,000 mu, 60,000 mu, you take once in a month because it's fat soluble. So fat soluble has problem. Diclofenac has this issue. It can lead to biological